everybody, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Folks, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm really pumped, because I'm getting excited to blog the 8th Swan Princess movie, which came into my mailbox last week. However, before I get there, I want to look into 2 animated films from my childhood. So, for this episode, welcome to part 3 of the Year of the Dog. Okay, technically I'm kind of cheating since this movie is not just about a dog, it's also about another animal. But anyway, how about a little backstory? You see, as mostly everybody knows, Richard Rich is the one who made the Swan Princess into one of the strongest animated franchises of all time. But not many people know that before he got into directing this franchise, he used to work as an animator for Disney. There, he worked on such wonderful stuff like The Rescuers, The Small One, Pete's Dragon, and several Winnie the Pooh shorts. Now, for today's blog, since I already blogged The Black Cauldron back in October 2015, we'll be looking at a Disney film that became Richard's directorial debut. Released on July 10th, 1981, the movie is The Fox and the Hound. Now let's get started. After his mother is killed, a young fox named Todd is taken in by the kindly widow Tweed. He soon befriends the neighbor's new hound dog, Copper. The two are inseparable, but their friendship is hampered by their masters and by the fact that they are, by nature, enemies. They grow apart as they grow older, and Copper has become a strong hunting dog, and Todd has become a wild fox. The pair must overcome their inherent differences in order to salvage their friendship. So, what do I think of this movie? Well, this is another Disney favorite from my childhood. And to further explain why I still love this movie, let's move on to Mustang notes. One of the 9 old men, Wolfgang Reitherman, read the original novel and found it particularly touching because one of his sons had once owned a pet fox years before. He decided that it would make a good animated feature. Thus the film began production in spring 1977. Reitherman, along with Art Stevens and Ron Miller, quarreled over key sections of the film, with Miller supporting the younger Stevens. Miller instructed Reitherman to surrender reins over the junior personnel, but Reitherman resisted due to a lack of trust in the young animators. Thinking the film had a weak second act, Reitherman decided to add a musical sequence of 2 swooping cranes voiced by Phil Harris and Caro, who would sing a silly song titled Scooby-Dooby-Dooby-Doo, Let Your Body Turn Goo. Live-action reference footage was shot of Caro in a sweaty pink leotard, and the scene was strongly disliked by studio personnel who felt the song was a distraction from the main plot, with Stevens stating that they can't let that sequence into the movie, it's totally out of place. Stevens notified studio management, and after many story conferences, the scene was removed. Reitherman later walked into Stevens' office, slumped in a chair, and said, "I don't know, art? Maybe this is a young man's medium." He later moved on to underdeveloped projects such as Catfish Band, and sadly, he died in a car accident in 1985. This project would mark the last film to have the involvement of Disney's 9 old men who had retired early during production, and the animation was turned over to the next generation of directors and animators, which included John Lasseter, John Musker, Ron Clements, Glenn Keane, Tim Burton, Brad Bird, Henry Selick, Chris Buck, and Mark Dindal, all of whom would finalize the animation and complete the film's production. These animators have moved through the in-house animation training program and would play an important role in the Disney Renaissance of the 1980s and 1990s. And, of course, in my opinion, for 1980s hand-drawn Disney animation, there's nothing negative to say here. I think that the forest and farms look very good. Also, since this movie was made during the 80s, there's hardly anything in this movie that is dark. But there are a few parts of the movie that I'd like to talk about. For example, the opening credits does start out pretty nice and quiet, but then it becomes pretty suspenseful when we see Todd's mother running with Todd in her mouth, escaping from an off-screen dog, and, of course, getting shot. And the parts where Amos tries to shoot Todd is pretty crazy and rowdy at first, but later when Amos is in the woods illegally trying to catch Todd, it's pretty creepy. Especially during the part where Amos gets attacked by a huge bear. Yep, ever since I was little, this bear was really terrifying, and I think this bear became the inspiration for Mordu from Brave. And I think the part where the bear corners Todd on an old log by the waterfall may have influenced a scene in Alpha and Omega. But, on the other hand, this movie does give a nice message about friendship. Now, even though there are a few songs in this movie, I cannot consider this movie as a musical. But for now, I'd like to talk about two of them. The first song is Best of Friends, which is one of many Disney songs I grew up with. Plus, I was introduced to this song by watching the Friend Like Me sing-along video before I saw this movie as a kid. The song is about the beauty and magic of friendship, and how Todd and Copper were great friends, even though they are supposed to be enemies. The only place a dog likes a fox is in its stomach. The song is also about how sometimes adults can get in the way, not let you play, and can't understand friendship's magic. The second song to talk about is Goodbye May Seem Forever, which is the most heartbreaking song in the movie, even though it's too short. It is sung by Widow Tweed, who has no choice but to give Todd up and take him back to the forest where he came from. During her drive to the forest, she remembers the good times she and Todd had together in the form of a poem. Also, in my opinion, I think this scene became the inspiration for a similar scene from AI, Artificial Intelligence. Anyway, now that we're done with Mustang notes, let's move on to the characters and the voice actors who brought them to life. Our first main character is Todd. As a young fox, he's voiced by Keith Mitchell. And as an adult, he's voiced by the late Mickey Rooney, who got to voice Santa Claus in several Christmas specials, Flip in Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland, and of course he got to narrate the Russian animated Snow Queen movie. In the beginning of the film, Todd is a feisty and playful little fox who has doubts that his best friend Copper will change. But later on, after he's left out in the woods, he's lonely and scared up until he meets a beautiful fox named Vixie. More on her later. But also, I think Todd is a very, handsome fox, and he's also very independent. Our second main character is Copper. As a puppy, he's voiced by Corey Feldman, who, after this movie, voiced Pico in The Magic Voyage. And as a full-grown dog, he's voiced by Kurt Russell, best known from Big Trouble in Little China, Sky High, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. To me, Copper has quite a talent for trailing and tracking animals using his sense of smell. But while he's friends with Todd, he does not want Todd to get hurt by Amos. But after Chief gets hurt by a train, Copper gets mad at Todd for what happened. But thankfully, their friendship is redeemed after Todd saved him from a bear. Next we come to Todd's caretaker, Widow Tweed, voiced by the late Jeanette Nolan, whom I remember as Ellie Mae from The Rescuers. To me, Widow Tweed is a sweet woman, and she's a hard-working farmer. And like I said earlier, it was sad when Tweed had to send Todd into the woods in order to keep him safe from being hunted by Amos. Next we have Todd's first supporting friend, Big Mama, voiced by Pearl Bailey, who sadly passed away a month before I was born. To me, Big Mama is a kind owl, and she acts like a wise grandmother figure for Todd. Also, it was shocking when she witnessed Todd's mother getting shot at the beginning of the movie. Also, if it wasn't for Big Mama, Todd wouldn't be adopted by Widow Tweed. Also, there are two songs that Big Mama sings that do give out good life lessons. The first song that she sings is Lack of Education, which teaches Todd that if he plays with Copper, he will be hunted by Amos Slade, because Copper has to hunt like he was told. The education is the knowing the fact that Copper will become a hunting dog. The elimination is the hunting of Todd that will happen if he does not listen to Big Mama and plays with Copper anyway. The second song that Big Mama sings is a romance song called Appreciate the Lady, where we see Todd and Vixie draw closer to one another. In my opinion, this song is pretty sweet when it comes to, giving respect to a pretty girl, and of course, supporting two lovers. Next we come to Dinky and Boomer, the comic reliefs of the film, voiced by Dick Bacalon and Paul Winchell. To me, these guys are the funniest characters in the movie. Mostly what they do throughout this movie is try to catch a caterpillar named Squeaks, which does end up giving Boomer a bent beak, and later they get electrocuted by telephone poles, which was pretty hilarious, by the way. But outside of that, I like that they help Big Mama with getting Todd into Widow Tweed's care, and with educating Todd about his future by showing him Amos Slade's shed where he keeps all the animal furs. However, if I have to pick a favorite between the two, I would choose Boomer. Because every time that crazy woodpecker opens his mouth, all I hear is Tigger. No surprise, since Paul Winchell was the original Tigger. Next we come to Widow Tweed's neighbor, Amos Slade, voiced by the late Jack Albertson. Best known as Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. To me, this guy is a trigger-happy lunatic, as Widow Tweed calls him, due to him hunting forest animals. When he witnesses Todd getting chased by Chief, Amos threatens to kill Todd if he ever sets foot on his property. Also, I think that Amos is a lawbreaker due to him disobeying the game preserve sign that says no hunting. But when Amos gets attacked by a bear, it becomes pretty intense when he gets his foot caught in one of his own bear traps. Yeesh! But still, this may sound a bit mean, but better him than me, because my leg is bad enough as it is. We also have Chief, voiced by the late Pat Buttram, who got to be in the Aristocats and Robin Hood. To me, Chief is a professional hunting dog, and he can be a bit ferocious while chasing Todd. Chief is also responsible for looking after Copper. Plus, Chief believes that trailing and tracking isn't enough to be a hunting dog. He believes you gotta think nasty. Also, the part where Chief's leg is recovering in Amos's cabin after that train accident kind of reminds me of me when I had to be in bed for almost 6 weeks after getting a giant cell tumor out of my left leg. Finally, we have Todd's love interest, Vixie, voiced by funny girl Sandy Duncan, who got to be in The Swan Princess and Rockadoodle. To me, Vixie is a beautiful fox, and I think she was nice to show Todd around the forest while falling in love with him. Plus, I think she and Todd make a nice couple. However, how Vixie knows Big Mama is a tad beyond me. We also have John Fielder as a porcupine who lets Todd sleep in his tree during his first night in the forest, and John McIntyre as a grumpy old badger who Todd accidentally pisses off twice. And now, let's move on to my final words. Overall, The Fox and the Hound is a classic Disney film from the 80s, and for Richard Rich's directorial debut, it was wonderful. The animation is fantastic. The songs, mostly the ones sung by Pearl Bailey, are great. The main characters like Todd and Copper have a relatable friendship. Dinky and Boomer are hilarious when trying to catch squeaks. Big Mama and Widow Tweed are sweet mother figures for Todd. And lastly, Vixie is a beautiful fox, and I think she and Todd make a sweet couple. I give this movie a 98% out of 100. Now, I think I know what you guys might be asking. Will I talk about its horrible midquel, The Fox and the Hound 2? Well, maybe not as a full blog, but more like a candidate for a list that I might make someday. Anyway, be sure to join me for my next blog as we move away from 1980s Disney and onto late 1990s Pixar, where we look into a movie that's been requested to me, which will have bugs. Mustang Power.